Hey everybody, this is Joe. Thank you for watching my Giga-Texas construction update video.
Well, welcome to Monday. It's the 12th of December, 2022, out here in a very foggy, misty, very low cloud Giga-Texas today. So what I tried to do because of the weather is I got here very early and got a lot of good views inside. We start with the casting machine structure, as you can see here, and take a look at pretty much the entire interior. Now, some of the stuff that I was looking for is any signs of the delivery of the 9,000 ton Gigapress parts that we saw, at least we thought we saw coming in on Friday, the 9th of December. As you can see in here, there is activity in and around where those foundations are, but it's really hard to determine if you can see any of those parts at all. So something we'll have to continue to monitor. You can also see here, we get a chance to see inside the 4680 battery production facility on the third floor of that northwest corner of the main building. And as you can see, there's quite a bit of activity still going on in there, and hopefully we're seeing a good ramp of the production of the 4680 cells. And then a little bit farther to the south, as you can see here, we look into the third floor of the structural pack section of the building, about middle way, and you can still see quite a bit of those 4680 structural packs all stored up onto this floor, and to me it looks like they're getting more and more there. Then we go a little bit farther to the south and we see here on the third floor of that new development and future development section of General Assembly. Now this is directly above the main entrance, and you can see there's still quite a bit of materials being staged here. Then we drop the drone down just a little bit, so as you can see here, some of the activity going on inside that main entrance, reconfiguring that mezzanine, the flooring, and some other treatments to try to completely change this from what we've seen before into some sort of grand entrance. Also, as you can see by this picture, we pull back a little bit and more of the demolition work of the concrete right outside of those main glass doors is going on today. The last thing I'll just talk about briefly is, if you remember on these images here, on the 14th of October, I showed you the delivery of these very interestingly shaped items, both wrapped in this white packaging. A few days later, as you can see by this image, we got some images of those components being moved throughout the building. Specifically, this is the north end of body in white, based on the grid coordinates that you can see in the photo. And then just recently, with this image, you can see what looks to be a Cybertruck basic body without the exoskeleton on it. And it's hard to say for sure if this is here at Giga-Texas because I can't see any grid coordinates, but I'd say that the odds are pretty good that that is what we're seeing. Some people ask, well, without a Gigapress, how could they possibly make that casting that we see in that image? Well, it's very likely that it was made either at Idra in Italy as some tests, or they're doing some tests off-site, and as we saw, being shipped in here for testing, checking the production lines, and maybe doing some other fit tests and preparing to set up the assembly line. But anyway, I thought you would find all of these interior images very interesting today. Now, because of the weather, because of the mist, I wasn't sure if I could get the entire flight done today. So at the time that I'm making this video, I haven't gone to the south end yet. Hopefully I'll be able to get some video. If not, then we get a chance to see most of the north end and a lot inside today. As always, thank you very much for watching. I do appreciate it, and I hope you have a great day. Thank you.
My drones are ready and raring to go. Let's go flying over Giga-Texas. As you can see, it's quite misty, foggy, very low clouds here at Giga-Texas this morning. However, I got here early enough to try to fly before the weather really got bad. So we're going to start off here in the northeast corner of the factory and take a look inside the casting machine structure today. So we're on the south end of the casting machine structure, looking across over to where 4 of the casting machines are operational. In the foreground, we can see quite a bit of equipment, some containers, and some other machinery that is kind of being stored or used in this nearby section. You can also see some castings that have been produced here very recently. At the bottom of the screen, you can also see what looks like some yellow robotic assemblers. And just generally, the 4 operational casting machines have really transformed in the last several months with a lot more scaffolding, a lot more of the bridge cranes over them, more of the white racking systems in and around, and also sort of a white mezzanine around the front of the 4 gigapresses. And then you can also see some more of that equipment boxes and castings in front of those 4 operational presses. Now, as we move farther to the north, what we're going to see is kind of this midpoint break between where the cast machines are, and then on the right-hand side, closest to the far wall, is where more of the foundations for casting machines are already located. We can also see in the background some equipment that has been recently delivered. And then closer to the drone, right next to that blue and white crane, we can see some other components as well. Now, what I think is closest to the drone is just materials for fitting out the basic structure. What we see at the far end are components and parts necessary for eventually installing and assembling the gigapresses. And of course, we are all waiting to see the 9,000-ton gigapress arrive and be assembled, because that's a key part of the Cybertruck manufacturing. So we'll continue to fly to the north here, looking across this entire section to see what we can find. Now, closest to the drone here, these black and white machines are DMG Mori milling machines. And they also have their own smaller bridge cranes on this white beams and columns in this scaffolding. There's also some more of these large containers with the blue plastic on top of them. Those have been here for a while, so I'm not sure if those are just more parts for the DMG Mori machines or what that's for. Now, as we get closer to where they just finished the new foundations for the larger gigapresses, what we see is some, looks like maybe some iron pipes getting ready for installation. You can clearly see the outlines of the foundations for the gigapresses on the concrete. You can see the concrete columns with the new bands around the top to help strengthen where the bridge crane rails are mounted. And then as we continue further to the west, we can see some work that is going on where these foundations have recently been completed. Again, you can see those outlines of where the gigapresses will eventually go. Now, as I continue to look inside here, I don't see any of those extremely large parts that we saw delivered on Friday. However, they could be underneath the wall where we can't see, or in some other sections of the factory. I'm going to come around this portable light stand and come back in to take a look from a different vantage point just to see what is visible. And again, you can see the foundations in this bay here. A lot of the components, some of those pipes. It looks like a crane, kind of a white crane with those black legs, has been set up as well. And then as we look over here at the wall that separates the cast machine and the paint shop, you can see what some of the materials look like here as well, and some of the vehicles. So that's how it looks today. I was kind of hoping we'd see a little bit more of some of the casting machine parts, but I can only show you what I see, so I hope that you enjoyed those views inside. As we're looking at the north end of the paint shop, I'll position the drone back along the road, pulling away just a little bit so you can see the work on the curbs and the sidewalk here. It looks like that work is done and most of the landscape has been installed. This is the 4680 battery production portion of the building, and you can see quite a bit of the steam rising on the top of the roof today. As I turned back towards the battery cathode plant, you get a good idea of where this is located in relation to the main building and some of the activity here on a very early morning. I'll take the opportunity of better visibility up near the building and show you some inside views of some other portions of the building. Now this is the northwest corner. A lot of this is either machine rooms, or it looks like maybe some small offices. It looks like they are preparing some more office space or gathering space on the second floor. On the third floor you can see quite a bit of more piping and some of the scaffolding that is being used to help reconfigure this particular section. At one time it looked like it was maybe a cafeteria, and we can see a little bit of that here on the corner. And then here's some of the sunshades. The reason why they have the sunshades is not anti-drone. It's actually because the sun sets on this side of the building and it gets extremely bright and hot inside here through the windows. Now here on the third floor is the 4680 battery cell production machinery and equipment, and it continues to be tested, worked out. Production is coming along. I just hope that we hear more information from Tesla about how the ramp for the 4680s are coming along here. As we continue to the south, you can see the second floor, kind of that long hallway with looks like some laboratories or some other doors going into that cordoned off section, and you can see some offices up on the third floor. As we continue further to the south, good views of both the second and third floor, more of the 4680 production equipment. This white equipment, I'm not exactly sure what it is. I've seen this before as they were installing it. Now it looks like it may be operational. And then here it looks like just some more storage of quite a bit of equipment and some containers, maybe some workshops as well. And we'll continue further to the south, and you can see on the second floor is the office space for the headquarters, and on the third floor is where the structural pack is created. And there's a lot of the sunshades down here, but we'll come back in and take a look inside where the machinery and the other processes are going on to make more of the structural packs. I think you can see quite a bit of structural packs lined up here in front of the windows with kind of that black wrapping. You can see some of these very large yellow robotic assemblers next to this temporary wall. And I say temporary because on the third floor you can see it looks like it's actually hanging down. It's kind of a plastic wrapped temporary wall to separate these two sections. As we continue further to the south, you can see what appears to be even more of the structural packs being lined up, not only by the windows, but as far as you can see into this entire section. And from what I've seen in the past, it does look like more and more of these structural packs are being manufactured and then stored up here, probably because they want to get them to a certain level of capability, or maybe a certain number of them here before they start making the 4680 variants again of the bodies. And those are a little bit different because they don't have floors and they have the front castings. But as I bring the drone up a little bit more, it just gives you a really good view of all of the 4680 structural packs stored in these containers. As we go farther south past that dividing wall, we can see all of these crates, equipment, some other componentry, and more just being stored up on that third floor. As we come down onto the second floor, or the main entrance, this gives you a good view inside of how they are reconfiguring this mezzanine and some of the floor treatment as well. Now, when we were at Cyber Rodeo and then later at the shareholders meeting, this was a completed second floor there, and since then they've been cutting out quite a bit of that to make it more open inside. On the outside, you can see the concrete removal is continuing, and it looks like it's taking on a more finished appearance as far as the form and shape on the two ends that kind of have these interesting cutouts. And also there's more of the concrete being broken up here right next to the road. So continues to see more and more of the reconfiguring on the outside as well as the inside. So let's get ready to go across the road and see what's going on with the north staging locations. So despite some of the mist coming in a little bit more, there's still good enough visibility for us to see what's going on this staging location. Looks like more materials. Some of the containers have been brought in over here. Some more of the fencing, some more equipment as well. And by turning the drone this way, you just get a good idea of where this is located in relation to the building on the back of the screen, and quite a bit of the mist that's coming in now that the sun is getting ready to come up. This is another staging location that's been recently reconfigured, flattened out the grade, put more of the aggregate mix. You can see concrete parts on the left and on the right, and more aggregate being brought in by that center dump truck. And then here is a workshop on the left and some more of materials being brought in. Speaking of materials, up at this north end, the amount of steel parts that continue to be brought in and stored here grows. They also use this as a temporary parking lot for some of these semi-trucks with trailers until their allotted time or time slot is reached for them to go onto the main property. But as I turn the drone around here, this gives you a really good idea of the amount of the steel components. As we mentioned before, the gray is the newest of the steel, and that sort of that reddish brown has been here for the better part of 1.5 to 2 years. But a good view of this staging location with the fog-shrouded factory in the background. So let's prepare to go across the highway again, and we'll go take a look at what's going on with the electrical switch yard. Flying over this triangular dirt section where eventually megapacks will be installed. We'll come up over the power lines and over near where the temporary electrical switch yard is located. On the south of that switch yard has been some material storage and staging for some of the steel and electronic components used for the construction of the new permanent electrical switch yard. And as we get a little bit closer, you can get an idea of some of the activity that is going on today. Now, the 2 concrete slabs for the transformers appear to be completed. There's some more steel parts that have been delivered near them, but I'm hoping to see the transformer itself arrive fairly soon. But this is a good view of that. You can also see the steel A-frames. 6 of the eventual 7 have been installed, and quite a bit of the other materials, including disconnects, breaker bars or bus bars, and some of the insulators in addition to the steel. So here we see some steel poles have been installed around the control room. The cable tray trench continues to have work done on it, specifically on the south. And here you see some trenching. I think this is going to be for drains for that cable tray trench. You can see that black pipe, and this will go into that water detention pond. As we look a little bit more at the main switch yard itself, this gives you a good idea of those kind of V-topped circuit breakers that have been installed, some of the gravel that's being used for the cable tray trenches, and generally just how this is looking today. You can see some workers completing the cable tray trench on the north end by installing that frame. This would say that the liners and the gravel has already been installed as well, and then they'll be adding some concrete. But I'll pull back just a bit to give you an overall view of how this appears today. You can see the factory in the background amongst all of that fog and mist. And then we'll come in a little bit closer just to give you a little bit more detailed view of the work that the workers are doing right now. You can see sort of that L end that the guy is working on. That means that that's going to be one of the sections that extends over to the main switch yard steel components. So let's reposition the drone and take a look at what's going on at the battery cathode plant today. Flying over that lined pond brings us over to the west side foundation, and we can see the geopier machinery is on the right hand side and the compactor is right in the middle of the screen. They will continue to do more geopiers on the south end. In the meantime, this large yellow crane has been installing these very deep and strengthened piers using some concrete and rebar. You can see with all of those red tops in it just how dense these piers have become, and this is most likely going to be a section that has something extremely heavy installed on top of it. The footings are also coming along. As mentioned in the previous video, there's different kinds of footings. You have some that are the square that's flat with the grade, and then you just have other ones that have projections that come up. These have also been used in the different parts of the construction, including the main factory, for various reasons. But you can see clearly the different kinds. This is also a great view to show the scale of these footings. Take a look at all the workers next to the footings and the rebars that they are installing. As we pan over towards the cathode plant, you can see workers continuing on this iron pipe and manifolds that are being assembled, and this will eventually be suspended underneath this steel structure. And we can see the steel structure has that bridge piece connecting over to the walls where it looks like there will be a doorway to have access to that roof. As the good view up to the north of the foundation site, I'll turn the drone around and get a little bit more altitude just to give you a good view on the north end and how the footings and other concrete structures that they're working on appear today. And you can see the two rows right now of the footings heading to the south, and also to the right of the screen, and I'll turn the drone just a little bit so you can see, is another large excavation going on just to the south of those two poured footings. And again, this is a pretty large excavation, and not exactly sure why they are doing this or what it will be, but it looks like there's actually a rebar cage sticking out of the ground right in the middle of that trench. So something definitely to watch as they continue to develop. So let's fly around the north end of the building and then come down the east side to see what activity is going on over there in and amongst all of this fog. Here on the northeast, we can see the control room or steel structure has got almost all of the walls installed and about 3/4 of the roof installed as well. So no more seeing inside there. I'm still not sure exactly what the purpose of that building is. This is just a good view of the activity on the east side. You can see some of these white components or platforms that are being assembled, and those machinery that's underneath the brown tarp was brought along with that, so it's most likely for the installation of those components. Here you can see those yellow trench boxes. Those are used to help prevent the trenches from collapsing in on the workers, and there's a few of them there as well. And it looks like most of the trenching work for the water pipe is completed. So here's a good view looking to the northwest of the entire battery cathode plant as it looks today. So let's reposition, fly a little bit over the warehouse on wheels just to get a little bit closer to the main factory, and we'll take a look at the new car staging and transportation lot in just a second. As you can see, despite all of the fog, the new car staging and transportation lot is busy. Several trucks picking up more Model Ys, and quite a bit are stored on the east and the west sides. So the production inside is continuing at a pretty good clip. Here at the smaller parking lot that's being turned into a staging lot, and also a place where they will do some testing of the cars and also some charging stations. It looks like most of the 32 superchargers have now been installed. There'll be additional work on some of the conduit and electrical connections, so probably another week, week and a half, and we'll see these operational as well. Now I'm going to take the opportunity and fly to the south along the east side of the building. Although there is some clouds and it's a little bit hard to see, once I get to the south, it'll clear up just a little bit more and we'll be able to see some very interesting developments on the south end. What you see here is the blue top crates and the green and white and blue large components of the AIDA stamping press on the east side of the stamping machine structure. Also some more of the materials being staged here on the east staging location. I'm going to go over the power lines and then I'll bring the drone down where it will clear up considerably, and then we'll be able to see a ground level view of the work going on here with some plumbing and some of the trenching that's been filled in across the road, and then also a much closer view of the stamping machine components here, waiting for movement into the stamping extension on the south end. And that very large blue draped item was just recently delivered within the last week. You can also see some more of the blue covered crates here, which are more of the parts for the stamping machine structure. Now I noticed this truck, and with those red items, I thought I would try to chase it down and see what that is. Although I couldn't quite catch up to the truck, especially the one coming here, I did give it a go. It looks like these are actually SPMTs, which are self-propelled modular transporters, and they're heading up the east side of the building, so most likely they're heading up towards the northeast corner up at the casting machine structure, and I wasn't able to follow them any more than this. But that may be a good sign when we're thinking about some of the EDRA parts that we're waiting, because those would be necessary to move them inside. But as I pull back here, you can see the continued installation of the steel corrugated piping here, and you can also see sort of an elbow section at the bottom of the screen. This is right next to where the underground splitter box is for the water management system. So it looks like they're adding another conduit here with these steel corrugated pipes, and it may eventually drain into the cyber pond. But I'll have to continue to monitor to see where it exactly goes. But basically where the end is up the upper left-hand side of the screen is right about where that underground splitter box is located. And it may be connecting into that elbow pipe that I mentioned earlier. Here you see more of the concrete lot continues to be removed. You can see a lot of the sections here that have been pulled up next to the steel corrugated pipe. Yard trucks having these slabs loaded up on them, and then as we've seen, there's about 4 different locations that these are being stored around the site. This trench is where the segments for the concrete pipes have been installed, and they're continuing around the width of the building. And then here's something very interesting. The steel platform that is used to load materials up into the 3rd floor of General Assembly has been removed. Now this is an interesting development that I wasn't expecting, so something new today. But anyway, a lot of fog gave us some opportunity to see inside today in many different areas, so I hope you enjoyed that, and some other sites around Giga-Texas. Thank you very much for watching. I do appreciate it, and I hope you have a great day.